The cave had no name on modern maps. Locals called it Logel Fern, the sealed mouth, hidden deep in the Carpathians. It had been cordoned off by rusting fences and forgotten government signs in 3 languages. The only thing more persistent than time was superstition. Dr. Elena Varga, a respected parapsychologist, stood at the entrance with her team. Marcus, a skeptic, and sound engineer Rachel, a psychic medium, and Tomas, a geologist with a quiet fascination for folklore. What exactly are we expecting down there? Marcus asked, adjusting his headset. Elena unrolled a brittle, yellow document. In 1972, a Romanian military expedition went in. They never came out. Only one man returned, and he came out blind, with his tongue torn out. He died 3 days later. Drawing this, she held up a torn sketch, a spiral descending into darkness. Something with too many limbs crouched at the bottom. Rachel's skin paled. It's already watching us. The team descended past the rusted gates and graffiti-tagged rocks. The air grew stale with every step. Moss clung to the walls, and the only sounds were water droplets and the occasional skittering of unseen things. Tomas ran his hand along the wall. These carvings, not natural erosion. They're glyphs, symbols, but they don't match anything known. Eleanor's camera recorded everything. We document first, engage later. They reached a choke point, a narrow slit barely wide enough to squeeze through. Marcus went first, muttering curses. When Rachel followed, she gasped. Something touched me. Could be me. Marcus called back. No, it wasn't human. On the other side, the cavern opened. The ground trembled for a moment, subtle but unmistakable. Tomas looked up. This place breathes. Sound played tricks in the cave. Whispers bounced from wall to wall, repeating words no one had spoken. At first, it was written off as echo distortion, until it began answering questions. Who's there? Marcus asked, half joking. I am. The voice came not from behind or ahead, but from within. Rachel dropped to her knees, shaking. It knows our names. It's pulling at the tether. What tether? Elena asked. Rachel didn't answer. Her eyes glazed over. She whispered in a language none of them understood. Is she channeling? Tomas asked. No. Elena whispered. She's being pulled. Suddenly, Rachel screamed and clawed at her ears. Blood trickled from both canals. Then the whispering stopped. The deeper they went, the more unnatural the cave became. Tunnels twisted in geometries that hurt the eyes. Light bent at wrong angles. Marcus's equipment began to fail, and then they found the alcove. Hundreds of bones lined the walls, arranged in patterns. Spirals, circles, crosses with missing ends, skulls with jaws broken open in silent screams. Tomas was pale. These aren't human, not all of them. Some had elongated jaws. Others had more than 2 eye sockets. Why would something collect bones? Elena asked. To remember, Rachel said quietly. Or to wear. Suddenly, a thump echoed through the chamber. Then another. Not footsteps, more like the dragging of something heavy and wet. Marcus turned his flashlight toward the tunnel. Nothing, but the thumping was getting closer. They made camp inside a small side chamber, setting up amphimeters, thermal cameras, and proximity alarms. But nothing calmed the growing dread. Rachel refused to eat. She whispered to herself, repeating the same phrase. The hollow wants to wear us. That night, Tomas was the first to vanish. One moment, he was standing near the glyph wall, studying it. The next gone. No sound, no trace, just his flashlight, still on, spinning in slow circles on the ground. Panic set in. Elena checked the footage, rewinding the camera. But the moment Tomas disappeared, the video went back. 6 minutes. Then it resumed. The last frame showed something standing behind Tomas' stall, wrong-shaped. Its face a black stretch of flesh. Rachel pointed to the screen. It doesn't come from below. It comes from within. The cavern echoed with a distant sound, faint, rhythmic, like bone dragged across granite. Lara froze mid-step, her flashlight trembling in her grip. Did you hear that? She whispered. Don lifted a hand, listening. The group hushed. Another scrape. Closer this time. They were at least a mile from the entrance. and deeper than most caving maps showed. Alec glanced at his instruments. "That's not tectonic," he muttered. "That's movement." The walls grew tighter ahead, forcing them to crawl. As Lara slid through, her boots scraped something embedded in the stone. A crude carving spiral symbols etched with something sharp, and below them, more fresh scratches to fresh. They weren't alone. They entered a chamber littered with calcified animal remains, some fossilized, others far too recent. Our IBS cracked beneath boots. Skulls with elongated craniums stared from corners. Alec knelt beside one. "This isn't human, or at least, not modern." Dan's camera captured everything, but the feed flickered, static crawling over the screen. Lara's breath came fast. "This place isn't natural. It's a tomb." Then the temperature dropped. A sudden shriek echoed down the corridor, high-pitched, ragged, and full of hunger. The team bolted forward, deeper into the cavern system, their only thought now survival. The tunnel opened into a massive hollow chamber, with a gaping hole at the center like the throat of the earth itself. The ground trembled with unseen vibrations. Don dared shine his light down the hole. Eyes blinked back. "Run!" Lara screamed, but the cave answered her with a guttural groan. A stench of rot and blood poured out of the maw, and a massive, clawed limb rose from the blackness. Grasping at the stone ledge, Alec slipped and nearly fell. Hands yanked him back. They fled, the thing's screeches echoing behind them like the wail of 1,000 mouths in agony. They ducked into a narrow side passage and collapsed, gasping. The tunnel pulsed faintly, stone moving like muscle. Alec touched it and recoiled. "It's warm." Breathing. Their lights began to flicker again. Shadows moved at the edge of their vision, skittering like insects. "It's feeding off us," Lara realized. "It doesn't need to catch us. It's already inside the stone." They needed to get out, but the map was useless now. Tunnels shifted behind them. Markings they'd made on the way down were gone. The cave itself was alive and it didn't want them to leave. Dan's flashlight died first, then Lara's. Only Alec's headlamp remained, flickering erratically. They huddled close, listening. Something shuffled nearby. Breathing. Wet, raspy, wrong. Alec turned and screamed. Something fast and pale skittered along the wall, humanoid in shape, but twisted, too long in the limbs. Eyeless, its skin stretched tight and translucent. It vanished before Lara could shine her light. Then Alec's headlamp died. Darkness swallowed them. From within that black came the sound of whispering, dozens of voices in languages not spoken in centuries, layered atop each other like overlapping nightmares. Lara clutched the others, trembling. They had awakened something ancient, and it was hunting them now. They ran, blind and desperate, scraping along jagged walls, the air thick and suffocating with the stench of centuries. Something followed fast, skittering, never seen, only felt in the tremor of their bones and the heat of its breath on their necks. Rachel stumbled, her hand brushing a slick surface. A pulse, not a wall flesh. The cave wasn't a structure, it was a body. Suddenly, a low, resonant moan shook the ground, deeper than any natural sound, not from a throat but from the belly of something dreaming and just beneath the surface of reality. A hunger that stretched beyond time. "Elena," Lara screamed, "where are you?" But there was no reply. Don fumbled with his emergency flare, hands trembling. The spark hissed and caught, casting the chamber in hellish red, and for a moment they saw everything. Dozens of them, the skittering things, crawling on the ceiling, clinging to the walls like malformed insects, eyeless, mouths stitched shut, but watching, waiting. And in the center of the chamber, rising from the floor like an altar of meat and stone, stood Rachel. But it wasn't Rachel anymore. Her limbs bent the wrong way. Her eyes glowed with a pale inner light. She floated a foot above the ground, arms outstretched, blood dripping from her fingertips and lips moving in silence. "The hollow wears her now," Alec whispered. Don reached for her, but Lara stopped him. "That's not her. That's it speaking through her." The whispering returned, now deafening, echoing off every surface, folding in on itself. Ancient words that twisted in their ears like parasites. Lara clutched her skull, screaming, "We have to end this. We have to close it." Eleanor's voice broke through the noise, cracked, breathless, from behind them. No, it was never open. It was always awake. She staggered into view, blooded and wide-eyed, clutching a piece of ancient metal, twisted, barbed, shaped like a spiral. "This is the key," she gasped. "It's not a lock. It's a signal. We called it here." Rachel's body convulsed. Her mouth opened wide naturally so, and from it, a sound emerged. Not a scream, not a voice, but a memory projected like pain into the minds of the living. They saw cities swallowed whole beneath mountains, monoliths older than language, eyes that blinked from the ocean floor, and always, always, the spiral, the endless descent, the sealed mouth. Lara turned to Eleanor. "We have to destroy the key." Eleanor looked down at the object. "It's made of something that predates Earth." Don stepped forward. "Then we bury it with us, if we have to." Another tremor shook the cave. Cracks spidered along the walls. The creatures hissed, retreating. It was afraid. Lara grabbed a flare and ran toward the chasm's edge, the gaping mouth, at the center of the hollow. "Throw it in." Eleanor hesitated, then hurled the artifact into the abyss. A moment of silence, then a scream from the dark, not from one throat, but from thousands. The cave convulsed, stone ruptured, blood oozed from the cracks. The air ignited with static and flame. Don tackled Rachel's body, dragging her free from the center. Her eyes fluttered normal again. Human. The creatures screeched and collapsed into piles of ash and bone. The walls began to close, the entrance collapsing behind them. They ran, no sense of direction, just the instinct to survive. One by one, they merged into the night, mud-covered, bleeding, half-mad. Only 4 made it out. Rachel didn't speak 4 days. Don kept drawing spirals in his sleep. Alec went blind a week later, and Eleanor, she vanished 6 months after the expedition, leaving behind only a journal filled with unreadable glyphs, and one sentence repeated again and again. The sealed mouth was never meant to open. But beneath the Carpathians, in the shifting dark, the earth still trembles, and something listens. 1 year later, Vienna, Austria. The Varga Journal had become an underground obsession, not published, not officially acknowledged, but passed hand to hand among fringe researchers, demonologists, and classified intelligence contacts. Its pages charred, water-damaged, filled with sketches, and incomprehensible scrawls spoke of something older than gods, something still dreaming beneath us. Dr. Matthias Lara, a mythocryptologist at the University of Vienna, sat hunched over those pages now. His office reeked of stale coffee and sleepless nights. He had traced the glyphs, matched them against pre-Sumerian scripts, even run audio spectrum tests on the sketch of the spiral. There were patterns, frequencies, coordinates, and a date, August 7. Today, outside, a thunderstorm rolled over the city, low and furious. He opened his laptop. A new message had arrived. No sender, just a subject line. The mouth is hungry. The file attached was a video. Shaky, night vision. Someone deep inside a cave. Breathing hard. The screen flickered just before it cut to black. A single frame flashed. Rachel, mouth sewn shut, eyes black pits. Behind her, something towered, shifting, faceless, familiar. Matthias's heart raced. He picked up his phone and called an old friend, Colonel Jacob Weiss, now retired, but once part of a secret Cold War unit focused on paranormal containment. When Weiss answered, his voice was quiet. "You've seen it, haven't you?" Matthias whispered. "It's still active." "No, it's spreading." Weiss sent a map, satellite images, showing geological anomalies, all centered around cave systems. Romania, Turkey, northern Norway, even Colorado, the same spiral, now etched into the land. They weren't dealing with one site. The sealed mouth was a nerve ending. The organism was planetary. Meanwhile, in Romania, Lara stood alone at the edge of a different cave mouth, this one hidden even deeper in the mountains. She wore a thick coat, her eyes shadowed with insomnia and guilt. Don had disappeared last winter, just gone without a word. No signs of struggle, and Alec was in a psychiatric facility. He spoke only in spirals now, drew them on the walls, on himself. Lara had returned for answers. The locals wouldn't speak to her. Some spit when she passed. Others made signs over their hearts. They called her the Hollow Bride. She descended without gear. No camera, no backup, just a flare, and a name on her lips. Rachel. Inside, the cave had changed, wider now, as if grown, and it recognized her. The whispering began at once soft and familiar. Welcome back. Lara knelt, holding up a journal page she'd stolen from Eleanor's notes. A glyph, a phrase. She whispered it aloud. The stone beneath her feet shuddered. A slit opened in the wall ahead, revealing a chamber unlike the others, smooth, room-like. At its center, a massive cocoon, breathing, pale, translucent flesh stretched over writhing forms inside. Dozens, hundreds, faces she recognized. Eleanor, Tomas, Dom, Rachel, all floating within, still alive, still screaming. Lara's flare hissed out. Total darkness. But in that silence, she heard something new. Not whispering, not breathing, feeding. 2 days later, a mining crew in Slovakia broke into a sealed cavern during routine blasting. The hole pulsed. One worker fell in before they could seal it. His body was never found. But 2 nights later, his wife received a voicemail. Static, and a voice. The spiral is a mouth. The mouth is a door. And the door is open. Somewhere beneath us. The earth is remembering itself. And we are just bones it hasn't used yet. 2 weeks later, Zurich, Switzerland. A confidential conference was held beneath the ETH's rich campus. Invite-only. Encrypted access. No record of attendance. The attendees were an unlikely coalition. Physicists, folklorists, military strategists, Vatican archivists, and one woman who hadn't spoken since 2003. At the center of the table, a 3D scan of a cave system, overlaid with pulsating red lines. They weren't natural fault lines. They were veins. Dr. Amara Feld, a geophysicist, pointed to the map. The phenomenon is no longer geological. It's migratory. It moves, like it's searching. Colonel Weiss nodded grimly. It's not a place anymore. It's an organism. A conscious one. Someone asked the obvious question. What does it want? The woman, who hadn't spoken in 22 years, finally looked up. Her voice was barely more than a whisper. To where the earth. Back in Romania, Logel firm, the sealed mouth. Lara was no longer alone. She didn't remember falling asleep. But when she awoke, others were there sitting in a circle around the cocoon, eyes closed, chanting in dead tongues. One wore Thomas' jacket, another moved with Rachel's gait, but their faces were wrong, smoothed, worn, like borrowed skin. She tried to scream, but her throat was dry, her tongue heavy. She staggered back, scraping her hand against the wall only to feel it pulse under her skin. A whisper echoed in her skull. The shell is thin. She stumbled toward the exit, but the cave closed behind her. Stone flowed like liquid. She was inside it now, inside the body. In desperation, she pulled the flare. It lit, casting strobing shadows across the flesh walls. The cocoon split, not with a tear, but with an invitation. And from within stepped Dom, still wearing his old field jacket, still smiling. But it wasn't him. His smile stretched to wide. His eyes blinked out of sync. His shadow had limbs it didn't possess. It's okay, it said. I wore you once. I remember. Lara screamed, but the sound never left her mouth. Because the cave was no longer just around her. It was in her, and it was listening. 1 month later, Iceland, Vatnajökull Glacier, not so. A group of glaciologists discovered a perfect spiral melted into the ice 5 meters across, and frozen in sub-zero temperatures. A drone was sent in to investigate. The signal was lost after 45 seconds. Recovered footage showed something below the ice. A giant eye frozen, but watching. It blinked once. Present day, somewhere remote, the last page of Elena Vargas' journal was recently decrypted using a cross-reference of Proto-Etruscan and Ugaritic root symbols. It was not a warning, it was a map. The spiral wasn't just a symbol, it was an invitation. Each curve a pathway, each line a mouth, each mouth a body, and at the center, a god that didn't fall from the stars, but rose from the silence between heartbeats. The sealed mouth was never sealed. It was only waiting for enough of us to listen. And now we do. The sky over Eastern Europe turned grey, as if the sun itself refused to witness what was coming. From beneath the Carpathians to the Icelandic glaciers, from desert tombs to flooded catacombs in Rome, the spirals had spread, subtle at first then unmistakable. Earthquakes without epicenters, people disappearing mid-sentence, animals walking in perfect circles until they collapsed from exhaustion. And then, for 7 minutes, the entire planet went silent. No wind, no bird songs, no ocean waves. Even machines failed to hum. It was listening. In the heart of the Romanian cave, Lara stood on the edge of the impossible. Before her lay not rock or bone, but a sky, a starless void that pulsed with ancient breath. The creature was no longer dreaming. It was waking up. Dan's body, whatever still wore it, approached her. "You can stop running now," it said gently. "The world already knows." Behind Lara, a chorus began to hum, not voices, but memories. Screams from Auschwitz, whispers from Pompeii, cries from lost cities buried under jungles and oceans. They weren't echoes, they were ingredients. "The mouth does not eat flesh," the thing whispered. "It devours stories, your pain, your belief, your memory. And when it's full, it will become real." Lara clutched the final flare in her pocket, her last light, her last choice. She struck it. A blazing red glow cut through the darkness. The creature hissed. Lara stepped forward, her voice clear for the first time in months. "You may wear the earth, but you will never wear me." She held the flare directly into the beast's throat, and the cave screamed, not in pain but in denial. Walls buckled, flesh split, the spiral uncoiled, collapsing in on itself. Time fractured. For a moment, Lara saw everything. The first ritual, 12,000 years ago. The man who came back blind in 1972, Elena drawing spirals in the dark, and Rachel, smiling as she let herself be taken, to buy the others a little more time. It all ended here. Lara took one step into the void, and whispered her own name, not in fear, but in defiance. "I remember who I am." And then, light. 1 year later, a child is born in a small village in Romania. She does not cry. Instead, she hums, a melody no one knows. But somewhere, beneath the world, a great mouth finally closes, and sleeps.